Hello, my name is Matilius258 and this is a review of the Assassin. Now, the Assassin is a USR ship. It is in the second tech tree line at the moment. It is worth 7,200 XP and 9,000 credits for purchase. It has a level 9 attack, level 4 defense, and level 7 utility, meaning its utility is very specific to its attack, and its defense is crap. There is no defense. Why is that? Well, your base hull strength is 7,000 HP. That's not much. And the initial max speed is 635, so it's actually quite nimble. And the Assassin basically acts upon its cloaking ability to stay hidden and play tactically enough to surprise the enemy where they least expect it. So, without further ado, let's look at what the ship actually has. So, first, weapon systems. There are 3 you can choose for the Assassin. The first is the basic rockets, which you get stock. It fires 16 of these. Each one does 70 parts of damage and travel at a decent speed. Next is the plasma caster, which fires 4, which I don't think is correct visually. Each one does 25 damage, which is much less, but it has a damage per second of 140 for 10 seconds. Next is the heavy rockets, which are the last thing you can research, which fires 8 rockets, which each do 150 parts of damage. Now, each of these have their own benefits as they have their own flaws. So, I should have like a little graphic going up right about now. First, rockets. Rockets have about a damage potential, and I'm not sure about my math, but 480 up. If my little calculations are correct. It fires a large spread quite fast, so it's pretty easy to hit them, and if you miss, it is not as detrimental. To your damage potential, because each one does not represent as much damage as, say, the heavy rockets. So they're easy to use. It fires quite a few of them. It doesn't matter if you miss a few, because you probably will. And the damage potential isn't half bad. What is its reload? Cooldown 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Okay, so I was going to probably say something about reload, but apparently I can't. Next is the plasma caster. The plasma caster is an interesting weapon system. First off, the player card doesn't look right to me after having used it and had the receiving end of it in practice. The 1-4 volley scale, 4 being the total amount of rockets fired at you, doesn't seem right to me. I think it should be more around 8 visually, but I could be wrong. Its optimal range is short. Oh yeah, speaking of range. Woo. Stuff falling. The rockets have a range of 10,000 meters, but I'm telling you now, the range does not matter. Except when you're using the plasma caster. You can stay about 3,000 meters away from anything and you'll probably hit them. So just keep that in mind. However, the optimal range for the plasma caster being only 1,000 meters shows that this is an absolutely close range item. They also travel quite slowly. So its damage potential is actually quite strange. Mathematically, I don't have the damage potential very high. Its 4 supposed shots at 25 parts of damage only gets you 100 damage, but with ambush factored in, it gets you just a little bit extra, about 400. However, the 140 damage per second for 10 seconds is where it kind of balances out. Mathematically, not so much, but practically, yes. The 140 damage per second for 10 seconds is a plasma effect that you apply to a ship. It strips the armor, causing more damage, and allows friendlies to proceed to kill them as well. Also, the plasma effect travels with the ship even if they jump lanes, so for some very humorous moments, you will kill a ship that is not in the lane, which is fun, but yeah. However, I think that if you do miss with the plasma caster, your chances of plasmaing something are actually significantly lowered. I'm also unsure of the plasma characteristics for its damage potential. That seems to be a very random kind of thing, in my opinion. Practically, it has not been reliable to base your damage on. Is it effective? Very. But I would say more so if you have friends with you. So, the last one that you can get is supposedly the best, supposedly, and that is the heavy rockets. First, 8 shots. Well, the 8 shots is good and bad. One, it means that each shot does a significant more amount of damage, so landing your shot does hurt. The problem is, if you miss a shot, you lose a lot of damage. So missing is far more painful than with, say, the rockets and the plasma caster. So keep that in mind. The optimal range is the same as the rockets, but you only want to stay about 3,000 meters away from your target. I'll explain why in a minute. However, its damage of 150 parts of damage is interesting. Mathematically, damage-wise, it's not much different from rockets. Supposedly, it does 4,840 damage as a possible potential. But missing is far worse than with just normal rockets, so balance that out how you would. If anything, I would say heavy rockets, to an extent plasma caster, are meant for bigger ships. Plasma caster rockets are used for smaller to medium-sized ships. However, I will say this now, using any of these weapon systems against a small ship, a la frigate, you will die. So, keep that in mind. So, weapon systems. Choose what you think will do you best. So now let's get into its more utility slots. First is the ambush. The assassin works with a twofold weapon system. It requires, one, the main weapons, but also it requires ambush to be effective. Ambush increases your output damage by 200%, which is where I'm getting these extravagant numbers of 4,000. It does not last long, and its base cooldown is only 20 seconds, meaning that you will reload at least once before this thing has reloaded. However, you usually only need to use it once. Ambush is exactly as it says. You must be within range of next to, and it usually is right before you're about to fire your weapons. Cloak. The cloak is pretty self-explanatory. You cloak. You're invisible. You cannot be found. There are things such as the Xeric Hunter's detect pulse thing, the Disruptor's detect pulse thing, some other stuff that can decloak you, but other than that, if you know where to keep away, then you should be fine. Next is Blink to Target. Blink to Target is probably the most useful utility in the entire arsenal of the assassin, and it's just simply getting close to the target, as that is very important for the assassin. You need to get close to get the ambush to work, and you need to get close to make sure that every single rocket fired connects. and that's what blink to target does. Its range of 7,500 meters is both good and bad. Its accuracy is, however, a killing point. If a target is engaged in battle with somebody else and you are slowly creeping up on them, the accuracy can sometimes place you exactly in front of the main fire barrage of the enemy. But that's just a risk you take. Other than that, it's a mainline. You use it a lot. Next are drones. You might be thinking, wait, what would be the point of having a stealth ship with drones? Well, these drones actually deploy a decoy, and it just is an image of your ship in space. It does not move, it does not do anything, it just exists. And it draws fire, which you would think a ship that doesn't move and is in the shape of an assassin, where people know that assassin can do that, people wouldn't shoot at it, but they do, so it's actually quite useful. Now, there are 3 kinds, all of which with different uses. If you want, the basics of it is, this is the medium-sized, medium range. This is the short range, but has a very low cooldown. And this is the long range, which I recommend highly. And there's a reason for why I use this as the highly recommended one. The jump decoy is, one, a long distance decoy, so at one point you can extremely distract an enemy, but at the same time as well, you can use it in tandem with the blink to target to get an extra 7,000 meters to a location or away from a location. There should be, I think, a small video demonstrating that perfectly. And of course the engine, which has a max thrust of 580 meters, blah 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 blah. So yeah. So that's what you get in the Assassin. Now let's think tactics about the Assassin. What is it good for, what is it not good for? Well, it's not good for being a mainline ship. It flanks, it subterfuges, it picks its engagements carefully and very tactically and strategically. Anything else and you're either playing for fun or you're not playing correctly. There's no way to not play correctly. Oh, yes there is. Trying to be a mainline, I don't know, capital ship, such as the USR flagship. It's not possible in this. I'm saying that now. You don't have the health, you don't have the DPM to compensate. This is a completely alpha damage type ship. So you get in, you deliver all the damage possible, and then you get out. And you do it again and again and again. That's how you do damage, that's how you get kills. So, what does that mean? There are 2 main strategies. The first one is a fleet-based kind, which you might think kind of contradictory to what I just said, but it actually does work out quite well. The assassin zip around a battlefield and is able to cloak at a moment's notice and proceed to then withdraw from combat instantly. However, in kind of a versatile ninja-like tactic with that when you're in with a fleet, when you attack, you do tactical massive amounts of damage to high priority targets, usually big ships. You then proceed to cloak and move on to the next ship, or you proceed to cloak and then move on to the other side of the big ship, which might have actually taken an interest to you. Unlikely if it's a big battle, but still. At which point you just rinse and repeat the entire way through. You usually do not take much damage. If you have started taking damage, withdraw, refer to a flanking position again, and come in after their interest has been satiated or been pulled away to a different enemy. The next one is a stalker type. Stalker type is basically you stay cloaked, you sit around where the enemy kind of likes to jump out and stuff, likes to put their really weak, very vulnerable ships, such as a sniper, at the back towards their base. You stay cloaked, you wait for them to show up, and you either do 2 things. One, you either get next to them, deliver your payload, and get away. In the case of, say, a corvette or a sniper, that is actually a very viable option. Not so much on a carrier, but still possible. On the other hand, there's also if you, say, get into their base. where you can wait and... Actually, you can do this anywhere, technically, but it works the best in the enemy base. You wait, you cloak up, you jump in, and when they're about to jump out, you get close to them. You'll see that their little symbol of jumping appears. You use the jump blink to blink to target ability, and then proceed to unload your payload with some amazing alpha damage due to that wonderful extra damage potential that you when you're jumping out. The vulnerability they have. That usually insta-kills anything. Is that foreshadowing? Yes, it's foreshadowing. So that's the basic main two strategies. After that, it's all... If you can figure out something that actually works, go with it. But these are the two that I think work the best. So, that's it for the review on the actual assassin. So next I'm going to throw up a video of me having a rather active game. Usually they're quite quiet. You don't do much sometimes in the assassin, which is why it was hard to get footage for this. So, yeah. Alright, so now for some gameplay of an assassin. First, I go over to B2, mainly B2, because it has a lot more stuff you can hide behind, which is great for an assassin. So I start off using the jump blink trick. So I get an instant 7,500 meters towards the little base so I can start capping, as I usually do at the beginning of other games. At that point, it's just capping. So, while we wait, I'm going to talk about what I actually chose for my loadout. One, the long-range jump, because I think it has the most potential for the assassin. Best range, it doesn't stay up too long, and it has a pretty decent cooldown, so I use that. Plus, when you want to get away, it's very far away, so yay. Second, the missile barrage that I chose was the heavy missiles. And despite some inherent flaws with them, I actually do like the heavy missiles. But, of course, as with all flaws, it actually matters if you can hit the target you're aiming for. Especially if it's a frigate. That was a misidentification from me. I thought it was the new Zarek Venture at the time. And at this time, I also seem to have found out something else with the new update, as this was shortly after it. I use Shift to move my ship down. I changed it from the original default of Control. And as we all know, the Shift is also a secondary button for the little jump map. Now, despite my disabling of that, it seems to keep popping up, and I don't know why, and it will do that for the rest of the game. It was really annoying, and I had to kind of compensate for it the entire way through, and it was just painful. So, for the rest of the battle, when you see that, it will pop up again. However, even though I was going up against a frigate, I would not have lived anyways. I misidentified that, so that is also something you must keep track of. There was that little target blank ability trying to get towards that jumping and very low health Leviathan. Excuse me. I missed him. But, hey. So now, I slowly just kind of move over, stopping a little bit to let the thing recharge and do a jump trick, of course, to get some distance. So yeah, the Assassin. The Assassin is actually one of the most tactical ships, as I've probably said before. It's versatile, but also really, really annoying for the enemy team, which is actually a surprisingly good thing, because if you're annoying, it means you're doing your job right. I mean, you're a little tiny ship. Okay, tiny. These things are pretty big, actually. You're a small ship that's got no health whatsoever, basically, with the only offensive weapon being a two-for-weapon system, where you required to use two abilities at the same time in order to execute anything. So it's funny how I find people go, oh, it's such a terrible ship, only new players who have no idea how to play the game use it. It's kinda, but at the same time, not at all. Using these things are actually quite hard, if you really don't know what you're doing. So, I'm about to get into a small battle here. So before that happens, I'm going to say a few things. One, there's that stupid little map coming up, so I can't turn my screen or else I'll jump somewhere. Second, killing other assassins in an assassin is surprisingly difficult, as you might not expect. There is his little return file, which completely missed me. And another problem is that friendly corvettes are actually quite dangerous to you, because their little heal beam, while much appreciated, is ultimately quite deadly to you, especially if you're trying to do something covert, because you're being targeted by your team, and the beam will stop at where you are. So anybody who's really paying attention, or just happens to be looking in the right direction at the right time, will notice that there is something definitely wrong. Here's another example of how it's really hard to hit something like an assassin moving at close range with these missiles. Yada yada yada. But anyway, going back to that small battle real quick, that was an example of kind of, I hate to use the word, but I want to say kind of ninja-y, all-around tactics, versatile tactics? I don't know. Of an assassin. Basically, you just zip around everything. You don't go you kind of flank everything while cloaked, appear, deliver a payload, move away, everybody else will be distracted, you don't take any damage, and all of a sudden they're missing 5,000 health. So, yeah. So that's how you do that, and it does require teammates and all that. You can't do it solo. This you can do solo. This is the other main function of the assassin. Simply waiting, which is also why I don't like showing assassin footage, because it's actually quite boring most of the time. This was actually a surprisingly lively match. So, big ship, doesn't matter, because the reason you stay cloaked and you stay around ships is because when they start jumping, they get that terrible, terrible damage increase boost, and assassins will take huge advantage of it. Now, I want to mention this too. This is a suicide tactic in this case, and point. And there's several reasons for that. One, you're at a base, so you can't re-cloak. You can cloak, jump in, but you can't re-cloak. So once you've delivered your payload and there's more than one person there, you are going to die, because you can't retaliate against something that you can't jump again. So I died, and surprisingly enough, that's actually a decent tactic for the assassin. Suicide tactics are not a bad idea. In big battles, it really depends. You have to really look for who's doing the most DPS and attempt to take them out. When you're in the enemy base doing suicide tactics, usually it's just really annoying, and it's cutting off reinforcements to a battle. So you're actually preventing a ton of potential DPM that the enemy team can put out. So in the case of taking out the Leviathan, you took out that, whatever that beam thing is called, and its barrage skill. Barrage? No, it's not barrage. Why is this escaping me? Oh well, its main ornament, which slows it down. That actually does make a lot of damage, so taking it out is actually a good idea. Is it recommended? Strangely enough, yes. You're allowed to sacrifice your ship, I would say. Is it a wonderful ploy? Not technically. So, next in this wonderfully active video of assassins is a assassin versus assassin fight. And you might be thinking, well, in the assassin versus assassin fight world, it's just whoever gets the first shot wins. And it's like, yes, but at the same time, no. Yeah, I did actually hit all possible rockets on him, so that's actually saying something. But now there's a very low health assassin who can easily be taken out if you can find him again. Oh, no, never mind, he jumped away. I don't think you saw that. Well, you might have, but in the top right corner when I looked back, you could see his little jumping rings. So, yeah. So another small ship, which is kind of the enemy of a assassin. The assassin likes to kill big things, not small things. A paradox is the small corvette. You might be thinking, what? It's like, well, I have a thing for killing corvettes, because surprisingly enough, they are pretty easy to kill. I said this in the sniper video, and I think I said it in the disruptor video? I don't remember. But I'm saying it again here in the assassin video. Now, of course, you actually have to hit them, but usually you can kill them in one shot. I feel so sorry for corvettes. It's nothing personal, it's just business. Personal business. Okay. So, I still haven't more or less even touched the A line, or the G line for this matter, in this game. Mainly because the A line presents too much open space, I want to say, for the assassin, and the B line provides a whole it provides a lot of cover where you can hide your ship without using your cloak. And it's like, why would you need that? Well, if you run out of cloak and you're trying to run from somebody, you have something to hide behind. Like in the case of a sniper, for example. So you don't actually take damage. However, the A line does provide one significant advantage. All the rocks and all the cover is based on kind of like a tunnel formation on the outside of the lanes. Which means if you really wish to invest in a extravagant flanking maneuver, you can actually succeed in doing so on the A line. But I don't do that. It takes too much time. Usually the rest of your team has either lost or won the lane by that point. So you're more or less waiting for the entire game for something to show up. And at which point they're showing up. They're not going away. So you don't get the wonderful bonus of having to wait and get that little jumping damage bonus. So that's why I use B line. G is a strange mixture. Because it's only meant to be about huge battles, you don't necessarily do... You're not that helpful. Because, well, yes, you can play ninja tactics, you can cloak and all that, and you can go around. It's all so close-knit that maneuvering the assassin around that area is next to impossible unless you are an amazingly skilled pilot, which I am not. So that's why I use B, and why I think B is the best kind of lane for the assassin. A, it does present a very nice significant advantage, but not that great. G, just too busy. You will be spotted. Oh yeah, speaking of being spotted when you're in G, friendly or non-friendly straying fire. Just, you're not aiming at you, but as they turn their camera to a new opponent and they did a sweep, one bullet just so happened to go towards you. Hey. So that was that. So that was just a small video of showing you the different tactics that you use in an assassin. You either be kind of ninja-y versatile, where you zip around in big battles and do extremely tactical, huge amounts of damage, or you do very silent stalkerish, wait for the right moment, let them start jumping, and then kind of go, surprise, it's a me. So whichever one floats your boat and all that. If this would load, I would show you the results screen. So technically, I had a good game. The assassin in its kill and assists ratio are some of the stranger things. So if you do a whole bunch of killing, you've done something right. If you've done a whole bunch of assisting, you've also done something right. Because the assisting, while it doesn't give you much, the damage potential that you had put on the assist is actually quite great. So it kind of cancels out a little bit. Not much, but hey. Kills are what you want. And captors, which will always vary between 0 to 7, so that was that. So that was the Assassin. It is actually one of my favorite ships. It is really fun to surprise people and just destroy them when they jump out. Do I think it's a good ship? Yes. Do I think it's a ship that everybody should be playing? No. Why? Because it's a very specific playstyle of just stealth, basically. That doesn't suit everybody, but hey. Is it a good ship? I would say yes. Is it slightly broken, as everybody else seems to think? No. I don't know why they do. It's really easy to counter if you know what you're doing, which is basically, if you're in a detection ship, detect whenever you think there's an assassin. If you're not, try to stay mobile. Simple as that. So, I don't think it's broken. I think it's players thinking it's broken and complaining that it's overpowered is broken. So, with that, I have to say two things before this video ends. One, have a nice day, hope to shoot you soon. And second, if you don't like assassins and you think they're overpowered, compensate.